All right, so we've talked about why I don't run my handsaw on my rope bridge. My rope bridge on my saddle, but on my leg. So let's talk about why I actually run my handsaw on my leg and some of the pros and cons of it. Okay, because nothing's perfect. I mean, once again, I like to make this mention, and if you've listened to me for any period of time in my videos or in my podcast, you'll hear me say that nothing in this industry is perfect because we're doing something that we really weren't designed to do. And so we're making the best situation of the worst case situation possible, right? It's just, if you watch animals that were designed to climb trees and that, are it's in their nature, it's in their instinct, they just are different about it than we are, clearly, right? So we're making something that's technically not, it's possible, but it wasn't really specifically designed in us to do, to be able to do this, right? So when I climb, I found that the handsaw on my saddle, which is where it started, was just more cumbersome and inconvenient for me than I liked, just so you know. Talked about that a little bit in the last segment. But then I found somebody online that was running the notch Talon leg mounts, and I was like, okay, because I had heard of some people using some old, I want to say it was Adam, the groundsman for August Hunnicky, that was running the old spur straps through the Silky scabbard and strapping them to his leg like that. And that's what I was going to do at first, but I just could tell that hard plastic against my leg wasn't going to be super comfortable. So as I looked around a little bit, I ended up finding the notch Talon leg mounts, and I quickly jumped on those. I want to say they're like $35 or something, and if I'm not mistaken, Gap Arborist also sells those if you're interested in checking them out. And as I bought those, I quickly realized that padding on the inside was definitely a benefit. So if you don't know what the notch Talon leg mounts are, they're like a preformed plastic piece with a high density foam on the inside that is soft, but it's the cellular particles are very close and it's very comfortable. And then on the top side, there's a little channel and the scabbard lays in it, and then you strap the scabbard to the mounts, and then there's a elastic Velcro strap that you can run around your leg and mount, cinch it to your leg essentially at differing variations of force depending on what you need. Because clearly your leg at the calf is going to be thicker than at the ankle-ish area, right? So, and that's how it's designed. I usually run mine about high to mid calf at the top strap, and then it's just like overlapping the top of my Arb Pro climbing boot just a little bit at the very tip of the scabbard, which doesn't affect my mobility at all for me. I never hit the tip of the scabbard with my foot when I'm bending my ankle to climb or anything, but you can adjust it to whatever height you want, right? And now do know that depending on the kind of handsaw you're running, it may be more or less convenient. I think the Segoys are a little bit longer. They may not be longer, they may just look longer because they're definitely narrower and thinner. Right, so keep that in consideration. That's not something that I'm dealing with because I only climb with the Silky Zubat at the moment, and that's what I went to very early on. So, just know that for me, I'm 6'2", so it would also depend a little bit on your height, and your leg length. You could even strap the saw to your thigh if you had the room with your saddle and everything on. That would be up to you. So some of it's going to just depend on your body structure and if the mount and the scabbard fits on your leg without interfering with your climbing. Okay, that's the first pro or con, is just dependent on you and your size, and you'll have to figure that out. I've heard a lot of people complain, oh, they're uncomfortable, they're this, that, they're that. It took me a few times of wearing it to figure out how much tension was the right amount of tension and how much was too little, where it would just sag down as I climbed and walked from the vibration of your leg moving, versus the right amount that keeps it in place and doesn't let it move down, but it's not too tight either. And I have found that that's part of it. Another key part is just getting comfortable with it. Sometimes it takes a few weeks of climbing with something to get familiar and comfortable and it become part of your climbing setup. So those are just a couple of suggestions with using leg mounts for your saw, right? As for other pros and cons, now one of the definite pros to it is that it's easily accessible, and no matter which direction I am, no matter how I'm oriented for a work position, if my feet are hanging up in the air and I'm literally hanging down, all I have to do is swing my arm up, grab it, pull it down, and I've got it. If I'm laid straight out, I've got it. If I'm laid on my side, it's down here, I've got it. It is very convenient for me because the scabbard is always securely mounted to my leg. No question. No matter which orientation I have, it works perfectly for the position my body's in because my hands are always relatively in that position and it's easy to grab and stuff. But for that, you would definitely want to make sure that your saw has some kind of easily accessible and releasable lock so that the saw doesn't just fall out. Okay. If you have a loose leather scabbard, for instance, and you have just like a Corona saw in there or one of the Japanese ones that I've seen, there's a good chance that it might just slip out if you're upside down or on a steep angle or on your side or something like that and you're moving around. So that is a pro or con depending on what saw you're running and how you climb. Okay. So that's something to think about too. Other cons for sure are that sometimes like the tail of my lanyard gets wrapped around the handle and I pull like I'm pulling rope, and as you're pulling and you get to the end, the tail starts whipping a little bit. It can wrap around the handle of your saw, and as you pull the rope up, it pulls your saw out. Most of the time my saw doesn't fall. It just pops up unclipped, and it like I can feel it jump and it goes back down. It doesn't clip back in, so you have to remember to push it back down to clip, or you'll make a dynamic move with your leg and it'll fall out on you. So that is a challenge as well. But that being said, when my saw was on my saddle, I also had it get caught and pop out from climbing rope or lanyards as well. So neither of them I think are fully free of that possibility. So you definitely have to worry about your climbing rope and your lanyards grabbing the handle of your saw and pulling it out of your scabbard. If you're trying to pull lots of rope real fast, and as you make those movements, that rope starts to wiggle, or that you get close to the end and that tail starts to flip around, it can wrap around. And usually, like the Silky saws, the handles are rubber, so rope tends to wrap and stick to them and pull. So you have to keep an eye on that. Now, another thing to think about is it makes your leg wider because the scabbard's mounted there. So whereas when it's mounted on your saddle, it swings a little bit more and you can kind of push it back and step through and pull it forward in a crotch or something if you're going between, you're moving around one lead and there's another lead behind you or beside you or something. In a tight crotch, you can fit your foot, but the scabbard might hit the edge of the lead and your foot's in there and it kind of fights you a little bit, and that can be annoying. So that's something to think about. You have to kind of figure out and learn how to climb with that difference of space, that difference of spatial availability. Sometimes between your boot and the bottom of the scabbard, a limb can get caught, or a rope can get caught, like the tip of as I'm pulling up on my lanyard, the tip can roll up under there and get wedged, and I have to kind of, it doesn't take more than a couple of seconds, but I have to kind of fight it and pull it out, and then it's fine. Same thing happens on the top. It might fall down and loop around the handle, and then you have to unloop it so you don't pull your saw out and you get in a mess like that. Because any of those if it gets wedged on the bottom, it can get you stuck. So that's very important not to do. Don't let it get wedged between your shoe and your inner scabbard piece at the bottom. At the top, it can pull your saw out and your saw can fall, and then you're kind of stuck too, because you either have to have somebody that can send it up safely without, grabbing, nicking, cutting your climbing rope or your lanyards or anything, but you also have to have somebody that can get it for you, or you have to go all the way down. And it never fails. When your saw falls out of its scabbard, it's going to be once you've fought to get into the perfect position in the canopy, and you're doing a thinning job, and then all of a sudden it falls 60, 80 feet to the ground, and now you've got to go all the way down to get it. Plus, you've got to fight to get back in the position that you wanted. So, that's just scabbards in general, right? You just have to make sure that your saw is always locked in. So climbing with one on your leg has pros and cons. Twigs can get between the scabbard and your leg, which can hang you up a little bit. You can get your lanyards caught on it and things like that. But overall, I still find it way more convenient to have it on my leg, because the lanyard getting caught, twigs going in between or whatever, is a lot less frequent than I was having to fight with a dangling scabbard that wouldn't stay still, and I'm trying to get my saw in or out. Plus, it took it away from my bridge, which that close proximity just made me very uncomfortable, and things like that. So yeah, there's I don't know, it's really preference, right? That's all there is to it. So is one way the best way? No, it's not. I can't say that I think you should climb with it on your leg. I prefer it, but I know a lot of guys who even do competition climbing, they climb with it on their saddle. So it's really preference. What I do recommend is, even if it's not the most comfortable, try to take some old straps or belts or something and strap it to your leg if you don't want to spend the money on the notch Talon leg mount, and give it a go for a few days. Just see if it's something that you think is worth investing in the mounts, to see if those will make it more comfortable and it's worth your effort to do. Okay, I really think it's one of those things where everybody should at least try it and see, and if they don't like it, fine, at least they gave it a go. But if you never give it a go, you might be missing out on something really, really good. So that's kind of the pros and cons of carrying and climbing with your handsaw on your leg, mounted to your leg versus your saddle. Now, we're going to get into a couple of variations of handsaws, and one is very specific to the Silky, so just know that it's talking about blade choice, and we'll go into the Silky Zubat blade choice right now.